Diamonds in the rough. NFL Draft Diamonds. Time to shine.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Williams with NFL Draft Diamonds, and we are the scouting staff for the Hula Bowl. This interview is sponsored by Tijuana Flats. Stop by your local Tijuana Flats to experience some of the best Tex-Mex cuisine, such as burritos, tacos, savory wings, mouth-watering enchiladas, and more. Today I have with me Grant Miller. He's offensive lineman out of Baylor. Nice to have you on, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So, yeah, I mean, I know a little bit about your story. Started at Vandy, ended up transferring, had a pretty solid, career overall. But if you don't mind, kind of set the stage for us. Tell me where you're from, and then we'll just sort of go from there. Tell me about your hometown.
All right, so my hometown's a little bit of an interesting question. My dad played in the NFL for 13 years, so I kind of moved around from city to city growing up. I mean, I was born in St. Louis, moved to Nashville, lived there for 5 years, moved up to Chicago, lived there for about 8 or 9 years until I started high school, which is when I moved down to Florida, which is where my mom is from. I ended up going to IMG Academy and graduating from St. Thomas Aquinas in high school. So, I mean, usually when people talk about football, where you're from, I say Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because that's where I graduated high school. But when people ask me where I grew up, I say Chicago because that's where most of my childhood memories are.
Gotcha. But like you were saying, I mean, going to St. Thomas Aquinas, right? So actually a very, big school when it comes to their football tradition. Talk about your time playing for them.
Yeah, my time with St. Thomas is a time that I hold really near and dear to my heart. I always have a good and positive feelings whenever I think back on it. It's just a school with a lot of tradition, a lot of history. You can't do anything but respect kind of the way that it's came up and grown over the years. Coach George Smith, who's the athletic director, has been there for 30, 40 years and has really built that program from the ground. And Coach Harriet has done a really good job as the head coach the last few years. I think they've won 7 out of the 9 last state championships down there. But, just going there, the moment you step in, there's going to be a lot of competition. There's always constantly a bunch of Division I players, NFL players going through there. I mean, when I was down there, Nick Bosa was down there. Elijah Moore was on the team with me. Asante Samuel, Josh Palmer, Nick Benito, Jordan Battle. I mean, there's just tons of guys who are been drafted over the last few years, guys who will be drafted in the next coming years. So, it was a good time to be down there and kind of see all those guys grow and develop too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a hot spot for NFL, bred talent for sure. So they've been churning them out for years, really. So, so during your time there in high school, did you participate in any other sports? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I played baseball while I was at IMG. I always kind of loved playing baseball as well, but my senior year when I transferred over to St. Thomas, it was kind of like choose between one or the other, and I kind of wanted to be more serious about football and everything. I felt like I had a future in it, or at least a better future than I did in baseball. So that's when I chose to stop playing baseball and kind of strictly play football for my last season.
Gotcha. So, why did you stick with football? And I guess really, why do you love this game so much? I mean, is it because of your dad? I mean, is it because of something like you personally truly enjoy about the game? Can you sort of elaborate about what draws you and your passion towards the game?
I mean, I would say I think it's just really because I grew up with it. I mean, I feel like some of it's a tough question because I've loved football as long as I can remember before I could even really understand why I would love it or like it. I mean, the first word I ever had outside of mom and dad was ball. I was always trying to say football. My mom would even say, she would tell me before I could really form sentences and stuff that I had picked up on the referee signals like false start and and touchdown, field goal, things like that. So before I could talk, I was able to sit in the front pack with her and uh, call things before they happen, on the field and stuff. So I mean, I've always said I wanted to be a football player. I've never really wavered from that. Uh, even as long as I can really remember, since I was like 2 or 3 years old, I've always wanted to play football. So I think I just grew up around it. I spent time going to all the stadiums. I've probably watched thousands of football games at this point, and I don't know. I just really love the sport.
No, hey, I mean, obviously it's been a part of your life, your tradition for a long time. I'm just kind of sitting here like trying to picture like the cutest picture in the world, and that being like a 2-year-old like putting up the touchdown symbol, things like that. But you've obviously been doing that since you were able, of course. I do want to chat just briefly. I mean, obviously you had mentioned that your father played played the game, Fred Miller. So, I'm just talk to me a little bit about how his, uh, how him being an NFL player really impacted you, and just kind of your overall like situation really when it comes to like you in the game and just that legacy. I don't know if there's a bit of a shadow there, like expectation sort of thing, but can you just sort of talk about it a little bit?
Well, I would say the biggest thing I had, getting to see my dad play in the NFL for 13 years, pretty much my whole childhood growing up, was just really learning how to be a professional and understanding what it takes on pretty much everything outside the athletic part of being an NFL player. I think a lot of kids, or a lot of high school kids and maybe some college kids, may just see all the glitz and glamour of like being in the NFL, but you don't really see some of the sacrifices that you may have to make with your family, with your time. The part of being a professional outside of just playing on Sunday, the treatment, the recovery, the film study, the, just getting right in the right mental space week in and week out. So I mean, my dad always coached all my teams in little league. So from the time I was 8 or 9 years old, he would have my whole team over to my house and we'd be watching film study. He would send another coach to go watch another little league team, and we were watching film on little league teams since this time I was 9 or 10. So I'd say just the little things like that. I mean, I also learned what it's like to kind of be, the ultimate teammate, be a great teammate to guys. I mean, he played on a lot of great offensive lines, and I think overall team chemistry or teammate chemistry is probably the most important on the offensive line, more so than any other position. So just kind of learning about the camaraderie and the relationship you need to have between, the 5, 10, 15 offensive linemen on your team, and how important that is because everybody's kind of working as one whole unit together. So just learning kind of how you need to treat that relationship on and off the field is also something I learned from watching his career so long.
Gotcha. And you yourself, I mean, you've been a part of some great offensive lines as well. I mean, again, like we had mentioned, playing at Vanderbilt and then transferring to Baylor. Can you talk a little bit about the differences in those two offenses and maybe some of the offenses you've been a part of in your overall career?
Yeah, so both offenses were two great offenses. When I was at Vanderbilt, we were run by Andy Ludwig, who's the offensive coordinator over at Utah now. He's having a lot of success over there. It was a lot of a pro style offense. I think it was a little bit more uh, intricate. I think a lot of that was because also what our quarterback was capable of, Kyle Shermer. He was Pat Shermer's son. I mean, I've never seen anybody know a playbook as good as Kyle, so he was kind of on some next level stuff. But it's a more pro style offense. We run a lot more inside zone. There's a lot of checks and stuff in that system. And then here at Baylor, we're underneath Coach Jeff Grimes, another coach who's had a lot of success. He was at BYU with Zach Wilson before he came over to Baylor and started having some success over here. Uh, it gives you the ability to play a lot faster than you do at Vanderbilt. It's the wide zone offense. So the whole offense is kind of predicated on playing fast and staying in your zones and really just trusting yourself and trusting your athleticism and you get rewarded for kind of playing like that. So a little bit more simplified, but a little bit more no holds barred, kind of just playing fast, playing violent. That's a little bit more what the offense is centered around here.
Sure. And one thing that I remember about your guys' offense actually last year at Baylor was just pounding the rock. A lot of good runs by some running backs. A lot of great talent that you've been surrounded by over the years at both institutions. Who do you feel has impressed you the most as a teammate? I mean, let's give me at least one from each institution, if you don't mind.
As a teammate, I would say at Baylor, I would have to go with Ben Sims. I feel like the tight end here at Baylor. I think he just works in and day out. Another big part of our offense here is just blocking. And as a tight end, I know some tight ends you can see are really more, about their stats, about their receiving yards. I don't really feel like it's that way with Ben Sims at all. He watches a lot of George Kittle film, who's probably the best blocking tight end in the league right now, or arguably he is. So Ben loves to block, and he's really bought into this offense. He really works hard in the summer workouts and everything, and he really sets the standard for the whole offense and the whole team. At Vanderbilt, I'd probably say it was Kyle Shermer. Like I said, he knew the playbook in and out, and he was really on some next level stuff. So really, when I stepped in first day on campus, I thought I was like, oh, I know a good amount of my football IQ is this and that, and here's this guy who had been here for 3 or 4 years, and he's talking about safety rotation and what that means for the O-line. He knows every single block that the O-line is supposed to have. He knows every single route. He knows everywhere that the running back's supposed to be. And he was kind of able to tell what was happening with defenses before they would even run the play or the ball was snapped. So that was something that really impressed me. And I always said, man, I need to study film like him so I can get to the point where, I know what's happening before it happens. So he was somebody who really impressed me at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, it's always great having teammates who really know that playbook. And also along the same lines as a guy like Ben Sims, I mean, a guy who, isn't as selfish, willing to get down, do the dirty work, and get some blocking done. So we at the Hula Bowl actually ended up inviting you to our event down, in Orlando this season. Invited you and actually one of your other teammates in Khalil Keith. So we wanted to get some good offensive linemen down here to showcase, the Baylor Bears, offensive line. So we're obviously transitioning now because, you're done with your collegiate time. We're moving on to the pros. How are you kind of, what's your mindset right now, man? I mean, we're transitioning into some more like intense things when it comes to like, being an NFL draft prospect, going through this draft process itself. I mean, how are you absorbing all of that right now?
Right now, I think some of those thoughts can creep in the back of your mind, but ultimately, I'm still taking this process seriously, but I'm really just doing what I need to do. I still think the most important thing is just focusing on myself and figuring out ways of how to be a better player. I mean, this is really the first time in a while where I don't have spring ball, to throw on the pads in March or April outside of the Hula Bowl. So outside of this 1 week, I'm not going to be in, football pads. I'm not going to be doing, live drills or scrimmages, anything like that, for probably 6-7 months. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is not to just get wrapped up in all the media stuff, get wrapped up in draft boards or rankings, or even what may or may not happen on draft day. To me, I think the main thing is, all you can ask for is opportunity, and everybody who's going through this process needs to know in the back of their mind, we're making a jump to league and competition that's much better than we've probably ever seen. So I think the main thing is being prepared to face that competition in August or whenever that time may be for people. So I think the biggest thing for me, what I'm focusing on, is just figuring out how to get better every day, figuring out what I can do to make this process or transition a little bit smoother for me. Ultimately, just being ready to compete at my best ability come time, whenever that is this summer.
Great. Definitely appreciate that response. I think some people sometimes, like, there's just so much craziness going on. It's just kind of hard to, have a level head. But I do think that, and I have to keep going back to it. I mean, kind of being in, seeing your dad do his thing over and over, and understanding what it truly means to be a professional and take care of yourself, and just kind of have that level head. And, like you said, I mean, you're just going to take care of you and just kind of let everything else, work itself out in the end. Um, so I mean, obviously, as an offensive lineman, you have your own skill set. So, how would you define your skill set? What do you think are some of your best attributes as a player?
I think one of my great attributes is my effort. I feel like every single play, whenever you cut on the tape, you're gonna realize that I'm playing whistle to the echo of the whistle. So I'm never going to quit on a play. I'm always going to be hustling to make that extra block downfield, to push the pile, recover a fumble. I actually led my team in fumble recoveries a few times throughout my career. So I mean, one
That's a
thing,
good and bad thing, but yeah.
yeah. But that's one thing, is I think my effort. Another thing I think is my athleticism. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with my effort. I mean, I think you'll constantly see me running around the field looking to make plays, going after blocks that you may think, oh, I might not be able to get there on the second level. And also, as I mentioned before, just kind of my football IQ. I mean, I really love to study film. I mean, ultimately, I think everybody knows that there's going to come a time and place when there's going to be somebody who's a better athlete than you. He may be stronger than you, he may be faster than you, but I'm a big believer, just like a lot of the Hall of Fame guys say, is that this game is 80-90% mental, 10% physical. And so I mean, I really think it starts with, one, knowing what you're doing, and two, knowing what the guy across from you is going to be doing. So if you know his moves before he does them, I mean, that gives you a better chance to win, whether you're the better athlete or not. So I think football IQ is something I really pride myself on too.
Great. Grant, we also have you, we do have you listed as a guard in our game, although I do know that you do have some experience also at center, which I feel is really going to help you out, for a lot of scouts, because I mean, you are this guy who could, move around in that interior, like, if need be. One of the other things that I feel you have going for you, and we discussed this before we got on, was the fact that you've been part of the leadership council. You've been a team captain for both programs, actually. Can you elaborate a little bit about what it means to be a team leader?
I mean, I think first and foremost, I think it's an honor, especially when I was at Vanderbilt, and that was team selected, team voted. So I mean, whenever you're kind of recognized for the work that you put in, or the way that you carry yourself, I mean, I think it's a big honor that your teammates would select you or view you in that light to represent them, represent your program. I mean, I think the other thing about being a leader is I mean, I think some people think get a little bit confused by it and think that, oh, this gives me the liberty to tell so and so this and that, or I'm kind of like top dog around here. If anything, I look at leadership is kind of like uh, some extra things that you may have to do, rather than a status symbol. I mean, I think it makes you hold yourself a little bit more accountable than maybe you normally would. Yeah, I mean, you realize that you're the guy who can't really be slacking off during a workout. You're a guy who can't be taking a rep off because it's cold outside and you don't really feel like being out there, or it's, the fifth practice of the week, or, you're in the middle of a conditioning session. Like, you always got to be on top of your game. And I feel like that pushes you to be a better player.
Yeah, and hey, when you get down to Orlando, it's going to be in the 80s, so you're not going to have to worry so much about the cold. At least that's what we're praying for, knock on wood. Don't want to have any messy conditions, but do expect a really good good situation for a lot of guys like you and your teammate. Uh, to really just come down and shine and showcase some of those talents that we've talked about. Let's reflect just a little bit about you as a college athlete. Overall, what are you going to remember the most about your time spent, at Baylor and Vanderbilt? I mean, is there maybe a particular game or play or moment that's going to be like one of those, big things that you remember for quite some time?
Well, I mean, I feel like anybody who's a Baylor fan kind of knows this, but I mean, I feel like after our Big 12 championship, with it coming down to the final tackle, stop them at the 1 yard line, to win the game, like literal movie ending. I don't know if there's any way I can ever forget that for the rest of my life. So, I mean, I'd probably say our Big 12 championship game last year against Oklahoma State. Uh, probably at my time at Vanderbilt, it would probably be beating Ole Miss, and it's like either overtime or double. I think it might have been double overtime. We had to win our last two games to become bowl eligible. This was my second year in the program, so I had never been to a bowl game before. Uh, and we were coming in as big underdogs. They had DK Metcalf, they had AJ Brown, they had Dawson Knox and Elijah Moore at the time. Ole Miss was a really good program, and we ended up beating them in double overtime to get our fifth win. And then we went on and beat Tennessee the next week, which was our big rivalry game. So, I mean, just kind of those two games over that 2 week span for me, and then getting to go to a bowl game, which oddly enough, we played Baylor before I ever ended up coming to Baylor in the Texas Bowl that year. But I'd probably say those like 2 or 3 games were probably the ones that I'll always remember.
Nice. Well, nice to reflect a little bit on your time. So, Grant, do want to also take a moment to not talk football for just a minute or so. I want to get to know this guy outside of the game. So, I mean, I know that it is a large part of your life, but kind of just curious if there's anything else that's a large part of your life, whether it be hobbies or other passions or what have you, interests or hobbies, whatever you want to say. Like, tell me something about you that maybe not everybody knows, something interesting. Give me something.
Well, I love to go fishing. I mean, like I said, my mom is from Florida, so every time I go down there and visit her family, we would go out and go fishing, either on the Gulf or when I was over in Fort Lauderdale, over on the ocean side. So that's something that I enjoy doing, is going fishing. Um, I also enjoy traveling a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier, I used to go to my dad's games a lot, throughout the United States. So I've been to almost all the states in the United States. I've been to 49 of them, all of them except Alaska. So hoping to get that
You
one
got to
soon.
make the trip, man.
Yeah.
I would say wait till the summer if you do
Yeah.
it. So, um,
So, I mean, I enjoy like going to different like sports stadiums. I mean, I love football, but I'm also really just a big fan of all sports. I really could hold a conversation with almost anybody who's a big fan of any sport, whether it be soccer, baseball, basketball. I could tell you about the upcoming free agents or hockey. I got into hockey a lot when I was up in Chicago. Blackhawks had some really good years when I was up there. So I just enjoy going to different sporting venues, kind of seeing the different vibe, the different culture at each of them. That's something I enjoy as well.
Interesting. Hypothetically, what do you see yourself doing once football's done, like, maybe 10 years or more down the line? Like, do you have any like goals like after football?
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of an uphill climb to become a college football player. I had a lot of health issues. I wasn't really, a lot of people didn't really believe in me that I was going to be able to make it here due to a lot of those like health issues. So I know and attribute a lot of my success to pretty much everybody who helped me along the way. And I knew that if it wasn't for certain people and certain coaches, that I never would have made it here. So I've always wanted to, when I get the opportunity, to go back and kind of help kids. So I could really see myself being a college coach or a high school coach. I haven't really decided which yet, but I really think just on and off the field, just kind of helping kids get an opportunity to like earn their degrees, whether that be through college or getting them there in high school, give them a chance to play college football or NFL football. really just help out, kids in need who need that person to kind of help them throughout their career is something that I would like to kind of like feel like I owe it to kind of give it back, pay it forward the way that people help me. So it's something I feel kind of passionate about.
Cool. What did you get your degrees in, if you don't mind me asking?
At Vanderbilt, I got my degree in human and organizational development, which is the business degree over at Vanderbilt. And then here at Baylor, I got my master's degree in sports management.
Nice. Well, I mean, hey, you'll be able to take those and maybe some time down the line, be a coach or whatever. But before you do that, you're going to come down to Orlando for the Hula Bowl and showcase yourself in front of a bunch of scouts. Do want to allow you one opportunity to just talk to all those scouts right now. I mean, tell them what you would bring to the table if they took a chance on you, maybe drafted you, and just kind of give them your pitch overall as to what would they be getting in a guy like you. So go ahead and close us with that.
Well, I mean, I feel like first and foremost, I'm somebody who loves football. I feel like, in my opinion, you're gonna have a hard time finding somebody who loves playing football more than me. I'm willing to push through anything, push through injuries. I played in all of my games except for one, finishing my college career, and that's over 6 seasons. So, I'm somebody who's going to push through anything, and I love this game more than anything else, and I feel like more than anyone else. So, and I feel like that's kind of tied to my work ethic. I mean, I feel like it's hard to find people who are going to work hard for you when they don't love something. And, this is something that I truly love. I also feel like I have the capability to play multiple positions. And I feel like I've got the football IQ to do that. I started pretty much all my games at Vanderbilt at center, started all my games here at Baylor at guard. So I feel comfortable really in any three positions in the interior offensive line. And I also long snapped in high school too. So, if anybody ever needs a backup long snapper or something like that, then, you can throw me in there as well.
Well, hey, I mean, certainly a guy who we're not going to ask you to long snap unless it's an absolute emergency, but we'll certainly give you the opportunity to play guard. Maybe move you in at center a little bit on a couple of snaps. So, I mean, we'll see how that works out. But really excited for you coming down to Orlando for the Hula Bowl. Once again, that's going to be January 14th. For people who want to watch that, it's going to be on CBS Sports Network. Going to see guys like Grant Miller down there. So do appreciate your time there. All right.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Take care.